This is how we get to be professional.
Yeah.
So at least introduce yourself, right? Give us
Okay.
give us some background.
All right. Hi, my name is Willmetta Owens. I am a self-published author, and this is part of my story.
Hi, my name is Dana Ellington. I am a self-published author as well, and today's topic is inspiration. And where does that come from? So I'm going to kick it off, Willmetta, with our first question. What inspires you to write at all?
I think the thing that inspires me to write is just the adventure itself. I like the fact that I can take whatever character I want and turn that into a story. And I can take those characters anywhere I want them to go. They can go on an epic journey. They can go through drama. They can go through suspense. They can go through anything. And I think that with me reading as much as I've read over the course of 20, 30 years now, I think it's just a joy for me that causes me to say, you know what, I can do that. I can write that story. I can take those pieces and paint a picture. So, Dana, for you, what inspires you to write?
I'm crazy. I have voices. I think my entire life has been spent mostly in an imaginary world. The what if, right? And so as things would happen around me, I would spend a lot of time going, well, why did that happen? Or why do people do what they do? Or, well, what if I had telekinetic powers and could then zap you into oblivion for, hurting my feelings, right? So it was those kinds of things that sparked me to start writing, because I needed some place for all of those ideas to go. And so it turned into, I started with journaling, and then that turned into storytelling.
I understand the voices. But I also used to, when I was younger, be outside and see people walking around and just kind of imagining what they're doing, where they're going. Almost as if I'm asking what's their story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could sit there and zone out for hours on end thinking about just things in general, not really realizing that I was under the makings of creating a story.
What's our next question?
What was the inspiration behind the stories in the books you've written so far?
Okay, so what books have you written so far?
So I have written 3 books. My first one is called In Safe Arms. My second one is called Naomi's Tide. And my third one is called Out of Safe Arms. So with In Safe Arms, that inspiration came from a story that I have repeatedly told everyone, and I am standing by this story. And that is that I decided back in 2016 that I was going to take a numerous amount of books that I had not read yet that were part of my book clubs that I would get subscriptions for, or just random visits to the library. And I wanted to take those and put those all on the shelf in alphabetical order. And then I wanted to start at the very first book and start reading. Now, mind you, this is like 150 books on the bookshelf that I didn't even realize I hadn't read yet, because I was still going to the library. I was still just getting things in different places. And so I grabbed the first book, never had read the author before, and start to read. And I would say within the first chapter or so, I started talking to myself. And what those words were was, dang, why do they do it like that? Why do they write it like that? Why do they do it like that? If I would have wrote it, I would have wrote it like this. Now, the story itself was great. It was a good story, but I just found myself repeatedly saying these words until finally My hubs, my wonderful husband, he told me, why don't you just go on ahead and write? Why don't you just write yourself a book? And I thought about it. I finished reading the book. I was satisfied, but I wasn't satisfied enough. And I was like, you know what? I think I will. I think I will go ahead and do that. And so I went ahead and I wrote In Safe Arms. I was so excited about this book. I had written 25,000 words. It was wonderful. I was so excited. I was like, we're getting there. We're doing things. I started looking information up and came across a workshop that was basically saying how to self-publish in 6 months. How to write and self-publish in 6 months by Dana Ellington. And so I ended up going to this workshop, and I was just like, all right, I'm good to go. I don't need anything else on the writing front because I'm done with this book. We're great. I just need to know how I'm going to get this out there and published, because in my mind at that time, it was, I want to be published. I didn't know anything about self-publishing, but we're going through the seminar and I start hearing more and more, and I'm like, yep, this is great. I want to do this. This is it. At some point we had a break. I don't know when. Come back from the break, and Miss Dana then proceeded to say that in order to be looked at, you have to have at least, 50 to 55,000 words. And then I panicked because I thought, okay, no, that's not right. I did these 25,000 words. That doesn't make sense. I've already finished the story. I don't have anything else to say. What am I going to do? So after the seminar, I started talking and texting and calling and texting and calling and having meetings. And then I finally realized that what I really had was a short story, not an actual full novel. So the story itself was there. It's just that I didn't have the meat in it for it to actually be a full-on story. And so I ended up going back, looking through all of my stuff, and being able to add in more scenes so that it became a full-on story. So my inspiration for my first book was just that one novel that I had on my bookshelf that I said, you know what, I can do this. And that was after my hubs actually said something.
Cool.
So what is the inspiration behind the stories that you've written?
All of it comes from having to process different things that have happened to me in my life. Definitely, as I mentioned, being that half in that imaginary world and, 85% in the imaginary world and the rest in reality, things would happen and I would struggle to process the why. The inspiration to write, like you said, came from, I read this book, and it was, quote, urban fiction, right? So it's written by a black male for, I think his target audience was black women. But about midway through that book, I thought, he made money on this. I know I can tell a story. And I know I can tell one as good, if not better, than this. And so gathering, the voices and figuring out how to process life experiences or whatever, got me to writing the first book. And of course, I always figured, I've always been a fan of, horror. So I figured I was going to write monsters. There were going to be, these demonic possessions and blood and guts and all that good jazz. And the first thing that came out of me was romance. I was like, well, this can't be right. I know that's not right.
That's not it.
Exactly. I was
That's not
like,
it.
no. I had taken a class when I was going for my master's. I had taken a class on, quote, chick lit. And talking about romance novels and all those tropes and whatnot, and got an understanding that women's contemporary fiction doesn't always have to be sappy. It doesn't always have to follow those romantic stereotypes. And so I forgave my first outing and sat down to actually write a story. And that's when, again, taking the experience of my hair loss and came up with my first novel. And again, it was mostly just to kind of process the feelings, the loss, the grief that came from losing my hair and, to a large extent, my idea of my identity. So that's how that came about. That's where my inspiration started. So our third question: what would you suggest, or where would you suggest new writers look for their inspiration if they don't have it already?
Honestly, I think that anyone can find inspiration anywhere. And the reason why I say that is because I can easily go out and sit on a park bench and watch everything around me and be able to create a story. I think it's harder when you actually have something that you're set on writing about and then trying to create around whatever it is of that idea. I think it's easier if you kind of open your mind up to possibilities of being able to just go out there and write something. But if you want something specific, then you kind of have to be in an area that you feel most comfortable in. I would say if you were in a high drama or high intensity area, when you're trying to get inspiration, it's not going to work. Sometimes it is someone in a conversation that you're having that could cause inspiration. I mean, I really feel like there's so much opportunity out there. But if you are trying to stick to a specific genre, you can think back to maybe movies that you've seen before, or maybe a situation that maybe a friend has gone through, and then play off of that. So, yeah.
I hadn't even thought about, tailoring your environment to what it is you're wanting to create. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Like, you're right, you go to a park, that doesn't put you in the mind. Well, depending on the park.
Right.
But again, yeah, being in a situation or being in an environment that helps fuel your imagination, your creativity for that particular genre. Oh, that is good. So if I wanted to write horror, I should go sit in a cemetery at night.
Maybe not at night.
I used to get, for me, it was music. So I would tell people, and I guess it's kind of that same thing. You listen to certain songs or whatever, and they put you in the mind of a certain story or a certain genre, a certain mood. And as an adult, writing fiction, I listen now to songs, I listen now to lyrics, and these stories appear. For me, it's the story in the music. And not all songs with lyrics spark my imagination, right? Or inspire me to write. Inspiration, you can be inspired by everything, as you said, if your mind is open to it. And so highly suggest new writers, before you solidify what your idea is going to be, just go outside safely in, today's world. Go outside safely and just be open. Sit down, talk to other writers or other creatives. And you don't necessarily have to be an artist to be creative. You sit down, talk to a mechanical engineer, ask them how they solved a particular problem. That could be the background for a story. Talk to the old folks in your family. You want to talk about some stories?
Oh yeah. It's a little bit touchy on that, because with older people, depending on what they've gone through, or back in the day, they didn't really talk about their family or even bad situations, and so those are a little touchy, those are a little sensitive. So if you're going to get inspiration in that front, You have to be careful. Definitely have to be careful on that, which we could talk about later about that.